Well, we're going to cross now to London, speak to Professor of Politics at Queen Mary University London, co-director of the Mile End Institute and Deputy Director of the think tank, the UK A Changing Europe. Tim Bale, thanks very much for joining us on the programme today. So yesterday, the police were gearing up, weren't they, for more far-right trouble. In the end, a real turnaround in fortunes.
Yes, I mean, there is some doubt as to whether this list of targets that was circulated was actually real or whether it was some kind of hoax. But certainly it did bring out a lot of counter-protesters, as they call themselves, making it very clear that as far as they were concerned, they were in the majority rather than the far-right thugs who have so far grabbed most of the headlines.
Yeah, we did get some sentencing yesterday during the day, didn't we, of three people, one going to prison for 3 years. I mean, might that have deterred as well, those far-right demonstrations?
I think that's certainly what the government will hope. Keir Starmer, obviously the Prime Minister, used to be Director of Public Prosecutions and was heavily involved in the policing of riots in 2011, or the justice system's response to them. And then the same thing occurred, really, very swift and actually pretty harsh justice for those who were involved. And it's very clear that the government seems to have achieved the cooperation of the media in publicising a lot of these sentences. There will be more today, and that may well have put off some people from coming onto the streets to demonstrate against immigration.
Do you think the problem then has gone away, or do you think in reality, actually, the far rise is still very much on the rise in the UK?
Well, I mean, I think the government has to be very careful that it doesn't signal mission accomplished in this. We've got a weekend coming up. It's still August. It's still warm. People are still drinking a lot and maybe taking drugs as well. And there is an element of football hooliganism related violence in all this. I think it is true to say, obviously, there are some extremists instigating this. They won't go away. They are keen, obviously, on promoting their Islamophobic and anti-immigration message. They're a very small minority, but with social media, of course, their message gets amplified quite easily, and one can go away with the impression that large numbers of people agree with them, when actually opinion polling suggests that they are, as I say, a very, very small minority of the country.
Yeah, how much do you think then that social media is the problem here?
It's certainly a problem. I mean, I think anyone who suggests that it's the problem is probably fooling themselves. Clearly, there is an undercurrent in this country of Islamophobia, and anti-immigration feeling is pretty widespread, not just confined to the far right. But certainly, I think the government has got a problem in the sense that it's actually quite difficult to control these very large tech platforms who have an interest in the sort of content that encourages people to carry on clicking onto them. There is a very, very difficult dilemma for governments there. They do want to maintain free speech. They do want, obviously, to be able to get their messages out on these platforms. But on the other hand, they are coping with platforms who really are rather more interested in revenue generation than they are perhaps in calming the situation down.
It's very difficult, isn't it, to know where to draw the line. I mean, one person's free speech becomes something that other people would find incredibly hateful and offensive. And it's very difficult to measure that and protect against that when it's online.
Well, I think that is true. On the other hand, if one looks, for example, like a platform like X, it is very noticeable that when people complain about posts which, objectively seem to be pretty racist, pretty Islamophobic, and in some cases pretty much, inciting offences. Their response to that, X's response to that, is to say, these don't break our rules. So to some extent, it depends on the platforms getting tougher, policing the rules that they have. But as I say, their interest is mainly in revenue generation and not really in helping the police or the government.
Tim Bale, great to talk to you on the programme today. Thank you very much for joining us. Tim Bale from the Queen Mary University London, co-director of the Mile End Institute. Thanks.